Good evening, all of you. Hope you all are well. Good evening, all of you. Hope you are able to listen me. You are able to get my voice. You are able to see me. Hope you are able to see the screen also of the topic electronic data auditing techniques. If you are able to see me, you are able to see the screen, and you are able to hear me. So please confirm me in the chat box so that I can start our today's discussion on electronic data auditing techniques. Thank you, thank you, thank you for the confirmation. Hope all are here well and feeling good. And today we are discussing about the electronic data auditing techniques. The point here is, hope all are here now, so please join. So the point here is, what I want to tell you here is, the last session was the good review practices, and now this session is with respect to the good electronic data auditing practice. So because nowadays many companies are implementing the computerized systems, and as they are going with the computerized systems, so they need to review the electronic data. You are aware that the data can be in the form of paper form or electronic form or hybrid form or any other form. I am not going to discuss the basics of this today. Please understand, this is somewhat the expectations of the regulatory and how we can implement the electronic data auditing techniques in our company, that we are going to discuss today. So the point is, there are different forms of record, and nowadays many companies or many organizations are moving from paper based data to the electronic data. So when we are going towards the electronic data, how we should review the electronic data, that is what the expectation, and that we are going to discuss today. Okay, so this is just a brief about the first slide, and now let us discuss about what we are going to discuss today. So these are all topics we are going to discuss, which are displayed here. So there will be the brief introduction about the topic, scope, and review in the pharmaceutical industry. Know your trainer. So there will be a brief couple of slides about my CV, as many companies take this as external training, and they consider this training, and they provide this training to all their side people, and they formally record their training records, so they can present that this is what the trainer CV. So that is the reason there are a couple of slides are there to information about me, to know about the trainer. After that, we will discuss about some FDA citations. What are the FDA citations or FDA observations with respect to the electronic data, that we are going to discuss. Then we will discuss about the regulatory expectations. What are the regulatory expectations about the electronic data and all. We'll discuss a short on approach to Part 11 requirements. Why it is required? Because it is related to the review of the electronic data or electronic data auditing. So I thought that to put as a part of the this training as a approach to the Part 11 requirement. So I put this. Very important thing, what we are going to discuss in this session is what and how to review the electronic data. Many people implemented the electronic data review, and they're reviewing the electronic data also. I agree with that, but whether they are compliant to the regulatory requirements. So what exactly we need to review during the electronic data review, and the second point is how we should review, that we are going to discuss in this session. After that, we will discuss about the brief on audit trail review, as the review of electronic data comprises of the major part is the audit trail review. You all are aware about this, okay? So what should be the contents of the audit trail, that we will discuss. And very important thing is how practically we can implement the audit trail, that also we are going to discuss today. Of course, along with that, what are the special training requirements, that are also we will discuss during the today's session. Then we will discuss about the probability of the errors. Errors means the errors, possibility of the errors, or the probability of the errors or potential errors during electronic data auditing or electronic data review. And what are its mitigation, That we will discuss also today. After that, we will have a couple of slides about the references. I will just display that slides, and then we can have the question answer session. So in between also, if you have any questions, please feel free, you put your questions in the chat box. I will revert back to you in the chat box only. I will revert your questions to the answers in the chat box. Why I will revert your questions in the chat box? Because these all questions will be stored for long period, so the other team members, other people also can learn from your questions and my answers. So sometimes, the questions are similar for many people, so we you can many people can learn from somebody's question. So that is what the purpose of the today's discussion about the question and answer session. So you please put your questions in the chat box, and I will respond to your questions in the chat box only. So this is just a brief overview as we discuss. The point is, now before starting of this, the first point is brief introduction of the topic and scope of the review, specifically electronic data review in pharmaceutical industry. Already at the start, during the start we discussed, but many people joined late, about 5 minutes. So I am just touching upon again that many companies move from now the paper-based record to the electronic data. So as the record is electronic, data is also electronic. So how we should review the electronic data? It plays a very important role in pharmaceutical companies. So that is the reason we are going to discuss this, and of course everyone is aware about the audit trail requirements and all. So that also we are going to discuss today in detail, and this is what the overview of the topic. So now let us move to the next, and the next is about the brief about trainer. Hope the screen is visible to all of you. So this is just a brief about me. I am Hitendra Kumar Shah, CGMP compliance consultant, trainer and auditor from NADH plus GXP compliance services, and this is a brief about my CV. I am not putting more time here. If anyone is interested, they can go through this slide, but I'm just discussing so that for some 5 to 7 seconds or 10 seconds the slide will be visible on the screen. That is the reason I'm just keeping it. I work in different companies, and these are the different companies. I started my career with Sun Pharma, then I work in a Blue Cross Laboratories. I work in a Alembic Pharma in a export oriented unit in Baroda, nearby Baroda. They have the export oriented unit. There I was there in qualification and validation head, and also in training and also stability also. I work in Zydus Cadila as a overall compliance head. I work in a USV as a quality head. I work in AstraZeneca. Then I work in a Sanofi. Then I work in a Mylan. During my entire tenure, I have audited more than 500 sites till date. And so whatever I have prepared this today's presentation is based on some guideline expectations, as well as the what is my experience during my audits. That is all I put here during our discussion. So let us start without wasting our time. So let us start our discussion, and just before going to discussion, I just put this slide as a disclaimer that if you want to implement the things, please refer the current guidelines, because now I am referring these, I have referred these, so these are the current guidelines. But as this recording will be there, I don't know how much period it will be there in the YouTube, but if it is for long period, then there may be possibility that that time after 1 year or 2 years also the guideline might have revised. So that is the reason I always suggest that please review or refer the current guideline requirements before implementation of the things. But of course you can use this as a very good learning purpose. This you can refer this video for the learning purpose. So that is the reason I just put the disclaimer. And now let us start on our current today's topic is electronic data auditing techniques, and with the start of some FDA or EU citations. And you can see there are some observations are here. You can go through the observations that failure to maintain a backup file of the data entered into the computer or related system, and then the details are mentioned here. So There are so many observations actually, but as it's a short training, maybe it may take about 1 hour and 10 or 15 minutes. So please be with me. This is very important. Uh, so please be with me, and there are so many slides, but I could not take it so many examples. If you are interested, I can share you, no problem. But there are so many examples, so I just take some of the examples here. During the inspection, we found that QC laboratory analysts were authorized to release a finished product in firm's computerized SAP inventory management system. This is again the the observation with respect to the electronic data. So electronic data does not mean that you will review only the generated data. You will review the whole data, how it is generated, how it is migrated or transferred, then from transferred how it is migrated from one form to another form, and after that how it backup or stored, then how it is restored. Everything is a part of the electronic data review. So please understand this thought before we from these FDA or observations. The next examples are again here with respect to the right of authorization level list the personnel who are allowed access to the computer that are listed as active. 9 individuals are no longer work for the company. So the people left the organization, but still their user ID was found active in the CGXP computerized system. And again here one deviation is there, some number is given, and with respect to again the observation is there. So you can just go through this observation. My point is, again I am telling you that many people think that the electronic data review means only review of the electronic data, what is available in the computer. No, that is what the wrong concept many companies or many people have. The review of electronic data means the data generated, then where it is stored, then when the data is restored, everything needs to be reviewed. That is what the point I want to share here with this example. Hope you are clear with this example, and now we will discuss about some the FDA. Okay, this is again one example I have. So there are some examples that failure to prevent unauthorized access or changes to data and provide adequate control to prevent omission of the data. So this is some example of again the citations, and these are some clarifications are given, so you can go through this slide also. So now let us discuss about the actual regulatory expectations from the review of the electronic data or electronic data auditing. Okay, so we are following our agenda. How we are going to follow already we discussed, and the same agenda we are going to follow. Already I have shared the agenda in a second slide. So this is the FDA requirement: use of secure computer generated timestamp audit trail to independently record the date and time of operator entries and actions that create, modify or delete electronic records. Record changes shall not obscure or shall not change previously recorded information. Such an audit trail documentation shall be retained for a period at least as long as that required for the subject electronic records and shall be available for agency review and copying. Use of operational system checks to enforce permitted sequencing of steps and event as appropriate. This is what the FDA expectations, and it is very clear from this that we need to follow the audit trail requirements. What are the audit trail requirements that are mentioned here, and also we should retain the audit trail reports and audit trail record for a longer period as per the expectation by the FDA. Hope everyone is with me. If you have a question with respect to these, again I am telling you that please feel free and raise your questions. I will revert to you. Okay, there are some other regulatory expectations from this is from MHRA. The inherent risk to data integrity relating to the equipment and computerized system, depending upon the degree to which the system generating or using the data can be configured, means system complexity and potential for manipulation of data during transfer between computerized systems during the data life cycle. That also we need to evaluate. So here basically when we are dealing with the electronic data review, then we need to put a focus at what type of system. Means if the system is complex and there is a possibility of manipulation, based on that we can decide at what extent we should review the electronic data. I will give a simple example, you will understand in a better way here. Suppose you are reviewing the electronic data for Chromeleon or Empower or lab solution softwares. Nowadays these three softwares are widely used in laboratories to these are chromatographic softwares. So here if these softwares are available, then there is a very little possibility of potential of manipulation, and all these are the very much complex also. So on the same time, if you take another example like some standalone instruments or standalone systems, so there will be more possibility of the manipulation, as systems will be simple and also possibility of manipulation will be more. So you have to evaluate that way, that where is the possibility of manipulation is more and how the system is complex, what are the automated controls over the systems, and based on that you can make a strategy for review of the electronic data. That is what the expectation by regulatory. This is not my expectation, these are the regulatory expectations. Hope everyone is clear and hope I am not fast. So this is what the expectation by the MHRA, this is the expectation by MHRA, and again another expectation is there where hybrid systems are used. Hybrid means, hope you are aware, I have not taken the basics of the the type of data and all. Hope you are aware about that hybrid systems mean the systems involved with the paper-based data as well as the electronic data. So where you are using the hybrid systems, it should be clearly documented that yes, we are going to use the hybrid system, and that constitute the whole data set. All records that are defined by the data set should be reviewed and written. Hybrid system should be designed to ensure they meet the desired objective. So here the point here is, when you are claiming that you are using the hybrid system, then remember, as hybrid system means data is in the paper form as well as electronic form, right? So that time you have to review paper record also as well as electronic record also. Very clear, huh? So this is what I just want to clarify the things from the hybrid system expectation by the regulatory, how the data should be reviewed. Where data generated is captured by photograph or image, the requirements for storage of that format throughout its life cycle should follow the same consideration. Same consideration. Now what is meant by this? See, the point here is very clear. Huh? Sometime what happens, we are taking the photograph or image to retain for longer period, because for example thin layer chromatography and all, we cannot maintain for long period. So when you are taking the photograph, or maybe in case of microbiological media plates, the growth, the count, some companies they took the photographs and retain, no problem. But as you are storing the data, now this is the data, you are storing the data in the form of photograph, and photograph image is what, photograph is what, is a part of now electronic data. So how you follow the flow for other electronic data, how you follow, like data backup, backup for longer period, then after backup for after that periodically you restore the data and then you review the data. Same practice, same requirements will be applicable when you are taking the photograph or image. Hope the point is very clear. So if you are using any photographs, now what type of photographs? Maybe complaint sample investigation, you take a photographs. maybe microbiological media, you take the photographs, maybe thin layer chromatography plates, you take the photographs. Whatever you are taking the photographs, they also should comply to the requirements. So the photographs also should be retained as a original record. Sometime what happened, the photographs are edited means what, photo is taken and below the photo that complaint sample number, complaint number, or some arrows are put that this is a defect. Or microbiological media, when photos are taken, then the the colonies are identified with the arrow or some identification. These are the edited form, these are not the original data. The original data, original photograph also should be maintained, okay, and also should follow the same electronic data practices like data storage, data generation, data backup, data restoration, everything. It should be followed for these photographs or image also. Okay, this is what the expectation by guideline. Okay, these are not my expectation. Again, I am telling you, where the original format cannot be retained due to the degradation issues. So just now I gave the example of a microbiological media or a thin layer chromatography plates and all. So you need to take a photograph and all. So you need to comply the requirements. This is again the specified in the guideline. Hope you are clear with this expectation of the guideline. Okay. If you have any questions, again I am telling you, please raise your question so that I can revert to you. Now we will discuss about the approach to part 11 requirements. Now why I am discussing this, because here also it is required to review the electronic data. So as the part of the expectations of the guideline or requirements, I am touching this part. Okay, so please be with me, okay, because this is very important and you will find only the regulatory expectation, but the interpretation of the regulatory guidelines and what are the actual practically you can implement, that all we are going to discuss in this training. So please be with me. Again I am telling you, I am requesting you. Okay, so part 11 will be integrated narrowly. It is clarified that these are the expectations we need to comply. First is the validation, audit trails, record retention, and record copying. So we should comply the electronic records for the validation of the computerized system, then audit trail requirements, record retention, and record copying requirement. FDA enforce all predicate rule requirements. Please remember this. FDA will enforce all predicate rule. Predicate rule means basic GMP requirement. Basic GMP means 21 CFR part 210211 for CGMP, good manufacturing practices for drugs and drug product. So similar way there will be the FDA part, different parts are there for medical devices and other food and other things. Okay, so FDA will enforce all basic GMP requirements. I will use this word as the all basic GMP requirements, including basic rule for record and record keeping requirement. So there is a subpart J for 21 CFR part 210 and 211. Subpart J is for record and record keeping. So that we should comply. So the point here is, whenever you are complying with respect to the validation, data backup, data storage, everything, data retention and all, no problem. But you should remember that you have to follow, you have to comply this FDA expectation that you should comply the basic GMP requirement, means subpart J. Example I am giving you, subpart J for records and record retention. Hope it is clear about the FDA expectation. And why I took this, because whenever you are putting a focus on electronic data review, you need to consider that validation of the document. So it is a one time, but of course it has to be reviewed. Second, audit trail review, that we are going to discuss in the next slides about audit trail review. Record retention, how the record is retained and all, how record is copied, that all is a part of electronic data review. Hope it is clear to all of you. The another FDA expectation is FDA is intending to enforce provisions related to these controls. FDA expects these controls you should implement in your organization. Very simple. What are the controls? Basic controls you should implement for all electronic CGXP computer system. So very important first thing is limiting system access to authorized individuals only. So already hope you remember our FDA citations, and we discussed the first example was with respect to this only. Limiting system access to authorized individuals. Use of operational system checks. So what are the operations are there? That system checks should be there. Use of authority checks. Use of device checks. Determination that persons who develop, maintain or use electronic systems have education, training and experience to perform their assigned task. Of course, this is the expectation by FDA. So that we are again going to discuss about a training, no problem. But the point here is limiting system access is very important to the specific authorized people. Operational system checks. So what are the operational checks are there that we need to ensure during the operations. Authority checks, that yes, authority checks are there or maintain, or there somebody change that authorities. Because what happened, we give the privileges. I have seen in many audits that we put some authorities or privileges that administrator, then manager, reviewer, operator, some different roles are assigned and some responsibilities are given under each head. So administrator will have some privileges, manager will have some privileges, operator or other maybe reviewer will have the different privileges. It is a part of SOP. But when actually it is checked in the system, so in the system when we check the actual privileges and verify in line with the SOP, we come to know that so many times these authorities are different. Means some checks or some privileges are given to the users which are to be given to the only reviewers, or the privileges given to the reviewers is only will only given to the admin. So this type of some common privileges will be there, which is not again in line with the SOP, and that way the observations or the non-conformities will be there. So always remember that use of authority checks will be very important, and of course use of device checks. So when you are checking any electronic data, please ensure that the device, whatever electronic data generating device, then is well maintained or not. So this is the FDA expectations behind the part 11 requirement. The other expectations are establishment of an adherence to written policies. So you need to establish and adhere to that policies or SOPs. So you should establish the SOPs that hold individuals accountable for actions initiated under their electronic signature. So if you are responsible for specific review, specific approval or specific activity, then that type of procedure should be maintained, and as per that you should identify that who has done that activity. Appropriate controls over the system. I have specifically make the content in the bold so that you will focus during our training session. So appropriate controls over the systems, documentation, controls for open system corresponding to controls for closed system. So hope you are aware about the closed system and open system. If you are not aware, I will just give a brief about the open system and closed system. So suppose now I am having a 10 instruments and I am having a local server. So all the data is backup is taken in my local server. So now the point is what? The data generation is under my control, data transfer is under my control, data migration under my control, my means a company control, and data backup is under again the my control or the user or the company organization control, and again data restoration is also the under the organization control. So this is nothing but this is the closed system. That means everything is under our control. But what is in the open system? Suppose that we are using the cloud-based services. So there what happened, data is generated at our site, and then data will be taken by the server which is not under your control. You are taking the server facility of the somebody company, maybe Amazon server or Google server or whatever. So many nowadays, so many the service providers are there for cloud-based services. So this is called the open system. So here you will not have more control because you need to depend on the service provider for using the cloud-based services. So this is called the open system, and closed system means that everything under our control. This is a closed system. So whatever we are using, open system or closed system, we should comply to this requirement. That is what the expectation by the FDA. Hope you are clear with this requirement. Again, I am requesting, if you have any question, please put in the chat box. So as per EU, again there are some different elements are there in the EU GMP Annex 11. So these are the elements: risk management, personnel, supplier and service provider, validation, data, accuracy check, data storage, printouts, audit trail, change and configuration management, periodic evaluation, security, incident management, electronic signature, batch release, business continuity and archiving. I just read it. Okay. See, the point what I want to share is this, you can get it from the guideline. Okay. That is not the problem. What I want to tell you is, if you see here as a part 11 requirement, here also you will find that there are so many requirements with respect to the validation, data, accuracy checks, then data storage, audit trails, periodic evaluation, security and all. So the electronic data review is also expectation by EU GMP. Many people think that part 11 requirement, so we are not related to the US FDA. We are only having the business in Europe. We are only having a EU GMP. So it is not applicable to our company. This is where some people or some companies have a thought process, but this is not the correct thought. The point is, the EU GMP also expect a similar requirement. So you need to implement, or you need to have the electronic data auditing or electronic data review if you are having a European business also. This is what I want to show you, and just to explain this, I put this slide to make you aware that you need to implement electronic data auditing or review irrespective of whether you are dealing with the European body or European authority, or you are dealing with the US authority. Hope it is clear to all of you. Now this is the interesting topic now. Very interesting. What and how to review the electronic data, that is the interesting topic now I will touch you. So first, everything is clear. First point is everyone is ready, clear, and again we are going to discuss about this, and it is a audit trail review. So everyone is aware about this, and after this again couple of slides are there for audit trail review. So don't worry about that audit trail review. We will discuss in detail about the audit trail review. Okay. Second is review of one electronic data with respect to the other data. So when you are reviewing the electronic data, how you should review? You should review the electronic data and with respect to the other data. For example, if you are reviewing the let us say the analysis data, analysis data. So when you are reviewing the analysis data and calculation data, so you can verify that at what time the calculations are done, at what time the results are received, then when chromatograms are processed, at the same time you can review that when the sample preparation is done, means when the sample weighing is done, when the standard weighing is done, so that you can verify the other documents whether they are in line with the traceability or not. That is what review of one electronic data with respect to the other data you have to verify. Third is review of electronic data in line with the reported data. This is very, very important, and in many companies I observed this point. What happened? the electronic data will be different, and the data generated is a different. In one of the company, even what I observed is the chromatogram, perfect chromatogram, everything was perfect. But what happened, the company, I don't know how, but what my thought is, the chromatogram, the screen was printed, screen print, the screen print option is there, screen print was done, and in the uh, uh, image mode, bitmap image mode, picture mode, person go, person change the area of the main peak, and then again the picture was printed, so it was look like a same chromatogram. But when actually in the computer, in the soft copy, when it is observed that the data was area was less in the system, but on paper the area was high. High means more, to make it passing, to make the passing results. So this is the practical example I have observed in one of the company. So hope you got my point. What happened, they process the chromatogram, and when the particular chromatogram print is taken, so what happened, they convert that chromatogram into the bitmap image, and then in that bitmap image they just change the area of the specific font, and then again they took the print of that image and they just put in the bunch of the chromatogram. So you will not able to find out the what is the whether this chromatogram area is correct or not, unless and until you review the electronic data. So when you are reviewing the electronic data, you need to review the reported data also. Review of data based on weakness in the system. Just now I was discussing that the standalone systems are the weak system because they don't have that much of control, like autotators or the other systems, while the complex system or the more advanced systems like other I'm not doing any advertisement, but there are some Empower or Chromeleon or Lab Solution systems. So they have inbuilt more controls. So when you are dealing with such a type of weak system, so you have to identify in your whole facility. I am again telling you that this is not only with respect to the quality control, but you can think about your production also, where you have the SCADA, where you have the standalone PLCs. So that way also you can think about the review of the data. So when you find that where there is less control, where there is a weakness in the system, so there you put more efforts for or more controls or more review of electronic data. This is what I want to share a thought here. And this is again weakness in the system. This word is again the guideline expectation, MHRA expectation I am telling you. So this is not my word. This is a MHRA expectation. Review of electronic data by considering the life cycle approach. Means business continuity system or business continuity plan, disaster recovery plan, and its effectiveness, etc. So when you are reviewing the electronic data, so electronic data review is not only reviewing the current data only. So periodically you have to restore the data and verify whether the data is same, not changed, not edited, not modified, is same or not. So that is also the you have to consider periodically. Review for deep dive investigations. Yeah. Sometimes what happens, many companies feel that we are having all computerized system, everything is a Part 11 compliant, we don't have any problem. But my dear friends, remember one thing. If there are some problems in electronic data, you have the SOPs of maybe the laboratory error or laboratory incidents, and that procedure you are following. I agree with you. But remember one thing, that this procedure is a manual procedure. Means if some laboratory incident is there, then the laboratory incident is raised manually. It is not automatically generated from the system. It is a different system, maybe paper based or maybe computerized system, but it is not automatically generating the incident. Just for example, if any out of specification limit is there, out of specification result is there, So if any OS is there, then there are systems, computerized system, that automatically the OS will be generated. Correct? But in case of incidents or laboratory errors or repeat injections, when you need to raise a laboratory incident, when you need to raise a laboratory incident or error or whatever incident, major incident, minor incident, whatever you have the SOP. This is a standalone practice, not an automatic practice. Just like OS, I told you that if any result is out of the specification, automatically OS will trigger. Yes, correct? But same way, these activities are not automatically triggered. And due to these, many companies are getting the observations. Second thing, computerized system implementation does not mean that you are free from data integrity. So I always suggest that if you are using computerized system, it has to be audited, not by the vendor, audited independently by the other agency. So we are also auditing the computerized system at the facility with respect to the SOP, with respect to the practices, with respect to the traceability, with respect to the whether they are suitable for traceability, whether they are suitable for the operations, whether suitable data integrity controls are maintained or any loopholes are there. Everything is reviewed during our review of the computerized system. So the point is, if you are having the computerized system, it has to be audited by independently by the other agencies. So what I was telling about the deep dive investigations. So when this type of problems will be there, when there will be the standalone practices like incident or the laboratory errors and all, so then you need to do the deep dive investigations. Because how many times this type of problem happen? I have seen in one of the company, I will not share the name of the company. What happened? There was a laboratory incident and the standard was injected again. So the as a action plan was suggested as a part of that laboratory incident that standard should be injected again. So what happened? Standard was injected, but after that again system was not giving the good results. So again another injection, standard was injected, again column was washed, again third time standard was injected. There was a repetitive standard injection, but the approval under laboratory incident was only given for one time. That means what? One blanket approval was used to inject multiple injections for standards. This is not acceptable. And FDA consider this as unauthorized injections in the system, unauthorized data generation in the system. So that is the reason it requires the deep dive investigations, or you can say even the good wording is data mining. So you need to do the data mining to evaluate all the things. Review for ensuring the traceability. So whenever you are reviewing the data, you need to review that whether the traceability is maintained or not. So that also you need to review the data. Practice evaluation, demonstration, and access also. So access is okay. I already given the example that the whatever the privileges are set in the system, the same privileges are in the SOP or not. Sometimes I found that the SOP privileges are different and the system, the privileges set in the systems are different. So that is what the thing about the access. And demonstration, practice evaluation or demonstration. So what happened? If suppose if I am auditing the any company, I will challenge the reviewer. If the reviewer is there, so the reviewer is routinely reviewing the electronic data, right? So if reviewer is reviewing the electronic data routinely, then reviewer should able to review the electronic data in front of the auditor also. So whether reviewer is able to demonstrate the review of electronic data or not. That way the practice evaluation is also very important as a part of the electronic data auditing. So these are the things that that is the reason I put this slide, that what and how to review the electronic data. So this I prepared from with the example of some guideline expectation and as well as I took it from my personal experience. So now let us discuss about in detail about the audit trail review, because many people even requested me to have a more discussion on audit trail review. So I took here a couple of slides on audit trail review, that how you should implement practically and what is the audit trail and all. So these are the discussion on here. Okay, so please bear with me, please be with me. Okay, again I am telling you that this training, I don't know how much time it will be in a YouTube, so please don't stop it. If you are checking or you are learning this, learn complete video, learn complete topic. Okay, the audit trail is a form of metadata containing information associated with actions that relate to the creation, modification or deletion of CGXP records. So this is the definition of the audit trail. An audit trail facilitates the reconstruction of history of events. This is again the information by the guideline only. So what is audit trail? Audit trail is facilitates, helps to reconstruct the history of events relating to the record, with respect to who has created the record, what is created, when this record is created, why this record is created. This is all information we will get from the audit trail. So basically the audit trail is used to reconstruct the history of events, so as to ensure that yes, really the activity happened, really the operations are carried out in line with the procedure. This is what the meaning of the audit trail. So this is just a definition, so I shared here. So there are some regulatory expectations on audit trail. So audit trail should be the computer generated. It should be independently recorded. So independently recorded means what? Suppose if I am putting my user ID and password. When my password is accepted by the system, immediately automatically the system should take the date and time with my user ID, that yes, this person logged into the system at this date and this time. It should not have the practice that after my login ID, then password, when the screen open, then I will click and I will put that system login date, system login time. No, then this will not be the independently recorded. It should be independently recorded. That means it is independent to the user who is operating to the system. Hope you are getting my point. The third point is date and timestamp. So whenever the audit trails are there, it should have the date and timestamp. Author is identified, that who has done that activity, maybe created or reviewed or processed or printed, whatever activity, modified, approved, all the things, who has done this. It should be secure. Nobody should able to change, edit or modify or delete the audit trail. Audit trail nobody should able to change, even administrator or even the computerized system who has supported you for computerized system or computer system vendor. That person also should not able to make the changes in the audit trail. It should be so much of secure. Does not obscure previously recorded information. So if you are making any change in the document or data, so previous entry, previous document, previous recorded information should remain in the system, so that you should able to evaluate the current change or current entry as well as the previous entry also. Written for as per the subject record. So unless and until you are storing the record, for example, again I am telling, record retention means, for example, like validation, qualification documents, you are keeping that record for a very long period, unless and until you are using that product, let us say a process validation. So unless and until that product is getting manufactured, you are storing that data for a long period, not only 4-5 years or 10 years. up to that period, the data also should be retained. And along with the data, of course, audit trail also should be written. Many people will ask me a question, for how much period we should retain the data? Data should be written for eternity, for very, very long period. Suitable for review and copy. So whatever the audit trail is there, it should be suitable for review. And of course, copy. Copy means you should able to copy, means print, and you can, you can put in a different record, or even you can, if you want to take the print and attach with the record, you can attach with the record also. So it should be suitable for print and means review and copy. So these are the the audit trail requirements about the regulatory. Hope you are getting my point. If you have any questions, again I am requesting you to put your questions in the chat box. I will solve your queries, all the queries. So contents of the audit trail. So what are the contents? So these are the contents. I will just read it. Risk-based approach. Don't worry. The next slide will be how practically you can implement the audit trail review in your organization. That I am going to discuss. But this is what I am just sharing a thought with respect to the content of audit trails. So risk-based approach, data transfer. Data transfer should not result in any changes in the content or meaning of the data. So when data is transferred from my computer to the backup server, it should not able to change its content or meaning of the data. And of course, it should be tracked in the audit trail. Data processing. If data processing has been repeated with progressive modification of processing parameters, this should be visible to ensure that the processing parameters are not being manipulated to achieve a more desirable results. So whenever you are doing reprocessing, reprocessing, all the entries, why you did this, everything should be recorded. What was the initial, the record, what is then the after processing, what is the change, whether you are doing the processing or reprocessing to get the more desirable results, passing results, that also need to be evaluated when you are evaluating the audit trail. Routine review of a data as well as the audit trail. Exception report. So whenever you are reviewing the GXP record, exception report means, the computerized systems are having the search tool. Search tool means what? Search tool means, you will put, suppose, user specific audit trail from date January to March. You will put the dates, you will use the filter, you will search with respect to the person, you will search the abnormal thing with respect to the date. Like that, you will use some search tool. Just like in Excel, Excel spreadsheet, you use the filters. Similar way, search tools are used in computerized system. That is called the exception report. Okay. So this search tool should be validated, and through this search tool also you can review the audit trail. This is what the thing with respect to the audit trail. One very important thing as per FDA expectation is critical audit trail checks should be reviewed before release of the batch. Always remember. So when you are making the strategy of a review of the audit trail, then please ensure that the critical audit trail checks means, now from here you will understand that you have to identify critical and non-critical audit trail checks, and then based on the critical audit trail checks you have to review before release of the batch. Non-critical, you can decide the suitable frequency based on how much data you are generating, what is the criticality of the data, what is the size of the data, and based on that you can decide the frequency for non-critical audit trail checks. But the critical audit trail checks should be reviewed before release of the batch. So critical audit trail checks related to each operation should be independently reviewed with all other records related to the operation and prior to the review of the completion of the operation, that is prior to the batch release. This is the FDA expectations. So why I am again and again I am touching this point, because many companies, they implemented the audit trial checks. I agree with you, I respect. So what happened? They have the checklist of audit trial, and that checklist they attach with the report. But the question is, what is the scientific rationale that you selected maybe 10 or 15 audit trial checks to review before release of the batch? What is the scientific rationale? Why you are not reviewing the other audit trial checks before release of the batch? What is the scientific rationale? So due to not having scientific rationale, the companies are getting the FDA observations. So the point is, you need to have a scientific rationale for critical audit trial checks. And what is the scientific rationale? The very important tool is risk assessment. Hope you are getting my point, what I am explaining you. So before this, I want to touch upon how practically you can implement the audit trial checks. Then I will touch upon this slide. So practically how you can implement? Practically perform the risk assessment, identify the weakness of the system, identify potential errors, what is the possibility of error in the system, identify the data vulnerability, and based on that you perform the risk-based approach, you perform the risk assessment and check that what are the audit trial checks are critical and what are the audit trial checks are non-critical. And then critical audit trial checks, when you identify that critical audit trial checks, you make it in the checklist form as a part of course, SOP, and that checklist you can follow before release of the batch, so as to ensure that all critical audit trial checks are done before release of the batch. So this is how you can do the risk assessment, and these points you can consider while considering the risk assessment. What points you will consider? You will consider the weakness of the system, you will consider the potential errors, you will consider the data vulnerability, and accordingly you will perform the risk assessment. Second, once you perform the risk assessment, evaluate audit trial functions, whether all audit trials are captured or not. Because what happened in the systems, there are so many audit trial checks: project audit trial, user audit trial, method audit trial, so many audit trial checks are there. So if you take any audit trial checks in a computerized system, there will be more than 150 audit trial checks. So you have to verify, when I am doing the risk assessment, whether I have considered all audit trials, and then all audit trials are evaluated with respect to the risk, whether it is critical or non-critical. That is the reason second point I have considered here, that evaluate the audit trial functions, whether all risks are captured or not. Understand all technical terminologies specified in audit trial report in easy language. What happened now, this computerized system is developed by the IT engineers. So they are not from pharma, they are the IT engineers. So their wordings will be different. So when you are reviewing the audit trial checks, the words you should be clear that this audit trial checks means what does it mean, and that way you can make it in the easy language. You cannot make the changes in the system, but you can make that wordings in your SOP, that this terminology as audit trial, it means this is its meaning, it means this is the easy meaning for that particular terminology. So that way you can make it in a audit trial SOP. Check which risk is critical, already we discussed, and based on criticality of the risk, decide the frequency for review of each check. Develop formal procedure for checking and recording. So you need to develop the formal SOP for checking and recording. Provide suitable access and training to the review. So who will be the responsible for audit trial review should have the specific access, so that they should able to review, and of course they should have the training also. Please be with me again, I am requesting you, because it is about 1 hour about to complete. So there will be some 10 to 15 minutes will be more. So please be with me, because I put lot of efforts in preparing this training presentation only for you, only for you. And this practical way how to implement, you will not find in any guidelines. So this is all I prepared with respect to the guidelines, some guideline expectations, and with the practical approach I make it these slides. Okay, so please be with me. Develop procedure proactively for handling of non-conformance. Very important point. Many people, many companies, they have the audit trail SOP. But if in the audit trail, if it is observed that any non-conformance is observed, there is some modifications, there is some multiple reprocessing without the approvals, there is manual integration without any approval, how you will handle this? You need to have the procedure proactively. Means before implementation of audit trail review, you should have that. If any audit trail non-conformity is identified, how you are going to handle this? And of course, if in case of audit trail failure, audit trail non-conformance, or any non-conformity with respect to the audit trail checks, then it has to be escalated to the top management, and if required, may require to escalate to the regulatory authority also. For example, if the audit trail checks you are doing and you come to know that there are multiple reprocessings, and then when the final reprocessed chromatogram results is complying to the specification limit, but the initial original chromatogram, when we are checking the data, it is out of the limit, and if that batch is released into the market, then you have to report to the regulatory authority also. This is how you can implement the audit trail practically. Hope you are getting my point. So I just want to touch upon about the contents of audit trail. So already we discussed, but again just one slide I want to touch upon here. Who made the change? Audit trail should include these parameters. Who made the change? What was changed, including old as well as new values? When the change was made, including date and time. When the change was made means date and time should be there. Why the change was made? That means there should be the provision for reason why you are doing this. Name of the person authorizing the change. Aborted or incomplete injection should be captured in audit trails and should be investigated and justified. So these are the contents of audit trail. So already you are aware about this, so I am not much discussing here, but hope you understood that how practically you can implement the audit trail review procedure, and then how you can implement a audit trail review. So there is some basic requirements about the training and qualification of staff. Sufficient training in data integrity principles provided to all appropriate staff, including senior management. A check of continued personnel understanding of good data management practice in the context of protecting the patient and ensuring the maintenance of a working environment which is focused on quality and open reporting of issues. A review of consistency of reported data outcomes against the raw data entries. So the people should be trained on data auditing, and also should have the open reportings and all. And as you know that the person who is working in the organization, he should have the sufficient knowledge, system access to review the relevant audit trials, raw data and metadata. So this is the basic requirement. This already we discussed in the earlier slides. Again, the second point also we discussed that if you have validation of the computerized system, that does not mean that you are free from the data integrity. So you need to have some controls also. Validation should be supplemented by the appropriate administrative as well as the physical controls, as well as training and education to the users that we should consider. And third thing, we remember that I discussed that a weakness in the system or potential to the manipulation. Hope you remember. So when you are doing the validation and you are evaluating the data, you have to identify that what type of possibility of alternation or accidental or malicious actions are possibilities are there in the system. Accordingly, you need to make a strategy for electronic data review. Hope you are getting my point, and I am not so fast. Okay, this is very important thing I want to touch upon. This is again, I am telling you that this is based on some experience and also observations by many companies. So I put here that probability of errors and mitigation plans. So the first very important point is the human interventions. Whatever computerized systems you are using, it is not a 100% computerized system. There will be always human interventions. For example, if you are using any computerized system like a chromatography system or PLCs and all, there will be some human interventions, maybe login, maybe some putting some data, maybe creating the method. You know, so many human interventions are there. So very important first point is wherever there are the human interventions, there is a possibility of error. So when there are, always remember, when there are the human interventions, always try to put some counter check so that any error made by the human can be identified. So that is why I am just discussing with respect to the possibility of error as well as the mitigation plan. Hope you are understanding my point. Second is poor organization controls. Many people, what they feel that they have the validation, so they are compliant to the FDA expectations, UGMP expectations and data integrity expectations. The answer is no. They need to have some additional controls also. So, but as they over rely on the validation approach of the computerized system, they don't have the sufficient organization controls and can lead to the risk with respect to the electronic data. So in that case, you need to have put more and more controls. And already I told you that if you have a computerized systems, that has to be audited or reviewed by independently by the external expert, so that we can evaluate that whether the validation document is in line, computer system validation document is in line as per the expectation. Second thing, whether the all expectation about audit trails are complying or not. Third thing, whether the all available SOPs are enough or need to be updated. And fourth, whether the practices are in line with the requirements or any malpractices are there. That also can be evaluated based on the audit. So always remember, you need to audit this so that to control the potential manipulation in the electronic data. Poor data review due to over reliance on the validated system. This also I discussed just now. Focus on short-term plan also in addition to the long-term mitigation plan. So when you identify that there are some non-conformities or the problems with respect to the electronic data, then always remember that whenever you are taking any CAPA, corrective and preventive action, always remember that focus on long-term action plan, but you need to have some short-term action plan also. Because if you put a long-term action plan, but you are not going to stop the operations for that period, you are going to use the system for the long period unless and until the action plan is implemented. You are going to use that system. So due to this, you need to have some short-term action plan where you can put some increase review, increase monitoring, increase control. You can put some this type of short-term plans. Limited use of access control functionality. So for example, administrator roles. This is also the classic example. In one of the company, I found that there were the different roles: admin, manager, reviewer, operator, like this. When the question was asked, who is the admin? I got the answer that admin, we have IT admin and we have the quality head admin. So we have the two admins. I told okay. I saw the privileges of the admin. Then I called the QA head and I asked him, tell me, what is the backup practice? How you ensure that backup is sufficient, satisfactory? You have daily backups, you have periodic backups. When that backup is done, how you ensure that backup is done, or backup activity is satisfactory. The person could not answer. The reason is the QA head is not involved in this activity, the IT person is involved in that activity. So when you are discussing about the administrator, you need to make a different roles for IT admin and the quality admin. So that way you can have a specific use of access controls. Otherwise what happen? If the admin role is given to the QA head, the same backup and all activities, roles, privileges will be given to the quality who is not aware what to do with this activity, with these privileges. You're getting my point. So that is the reason you need to make a proper access control or limited access control with respect to the functionality. No historical information regarding user access level. This is also very important thing, and there is a possibility of error when we are discussing about the historical information. Historical information means I work in one of the company 4 years before. Let us say example, okay? I work one of the company 4 years before and I was involved in HPLC analysis. When I left the company, my user ID is deactivated, not deleted. My user activity ID is deactivated, not deleted. So the point here is, after 10 years also, if somebody reviews the historical information, their information should be available that myself, Hitendra Kumar Shah, working in that company, and on this date my user ID was activated, and on this particular date my user activity was deactivated. So this type of historical information with respect to the user access should be available. Access controls applied to only application software and not the operating system. This is the observation in so many companies I saw. What happened? Access controls and all the privileges are given when we are dealing with the application. But my dear friend, application is installed in the computer. So whether that computer or desktop, you have the controls. Means whether you have the access control on operating system also. So the point here is, when I am accessing the desktop, then I should have the unique user ID and password for operating the operating system or opening the desktop. But many companies, they are not having that type of control. So these are some possibility of errors with respect to the electronic data, and this way you can put the controls. Further, if you have any questions, again I am requesting you can put in the chat box. I will revert back to you after this training session. Just wait for some time, and I will reply in the same chat box. So just wait for some time after completion of the training. So once my training is over, I will go through all the questions and I will reply one by one. Okay. Now this is what I just want to share here about the references. I took the reference from different guidelines: MHRA, PICS, WHO, Data Integrity Guide, WHO, and even there are some question answers from ECA. Again, I have referred to 21 CFR, UGMP, 21 CFR Part 11, UGMP Annex 11, and even the ECFR or Electronic Code of Federal Regulations Part 11 I have referred for this preparing the presentations, and of course I use my personal experience with respect to this training session. Hope you learn how to review the electronic data, at what extent we should review the electronic data, we should review along with the electronic data what we should review, and how we should implement the audit trail review and everything. Okay, if you have any questions, you can be in touch with me through these numbers. You can send me the WhatsApp, and if you have any questions, instead of sending on WhatsApp, I always request all people to put your questions in the chat box of the YouTube section, so that from your questions the other team members, other people also can learn from your questions. Second thing, you please be in touch with me through this mail number, so that if you have any if you need any support, you can contact me through this email or these numbers. If you want to learn so many different CGXP training topics. I have created so many different CGXP training videos in this YouTube platform. The name of YouTube is Hitendra Kumar Shah. Simply you go into the YouTube and just type Hitendra Kumar Shah and you will find lot of learning videos on so many different topics. Okay, this is what with respect to the today's training session. Hope you learn all the things, and now I will go on to the questions and I will go through each question and I will answer the questions. Okay, so now I am ending here the training session, but you please be there so that I will be online sending the my answer, so that you will be, if you have immediately the having the again some questions on my response, you can revert on my question immediately, answer immediately. Okay, thank you so much, and ensure all time compliance. Thank you.